One occurrence does not a research make. You've probably heard that saying before. Or maybe you didn't because I just made it up. But who knows, someone else may have used it before. Regardless, I'm sure you get my point. Observing and documenting a single event cannot be defined as research. That observation and documentation must be carried out within the same environment over a period of time and with a relatively high rate of repetition, covering at least 12 months. The reason why I say 12 months is that with the changing of the seasons, there will more than likely be changes in human and animal behavior, and that one factor needs to be taken into consideration. So that's why I'm back here near the Jupiter Inlet. If I'm going to form any sort of conclusion regarding the sharks that inhabit the coastal waters of Southeast Florida, I need sufficient data to grasp that information. So I begin my flight by scouring the waters to the south of the Jupiter Inlet, and all I can come across is seaweed. Whether it's shallow or deep water, the result is the same. As one battery dies and I switch to another, I launch a drone again, and this time I head north of the inlet. I was barely past the entrance to the inlet when I came across a bull shark. Notice how he's at the surface here, then he starts a dive. 33 seconds later, he's back at the surface. He hangs around the surface for another 43 seconds and then he heads down again. As I lower the drone for a closer look, it is clear to me that this shark is simply patrolling this area, looking for an easy meal. But this is not mere conjecture. Thousands of years of human observation, coupled with the fact that sharks have come to be called the garbage collectors of the sea, is a solid basis for forming that opinion. Yes, there are some species of sharks that actively hunt seals and other fish, but for the most part, sharks like to turn up after the fact and feed on the sick and injured, or the scraps thrown from fishing boats. The constant diving and resurfacing of this shark, as well as the pointing of its head in different directions, is a clear sign that it is hunting for a meal. But what could it be hunting for? As I head back to the launch site, we run across two fishes here. Don't forget that in part 1 of this series, we saw a large school of blacktip and bull sharks hanging around this area. These shadows in the water are actually part of a reef. Not necessarily a coral reef, but a reef nonetheless. These underwater features, which are sometimes large rocks, are hiding places where other fish can breed and raise their young. Small fishes will attract bigger fishes, and of course the bigger fishes will attract sharks. But before we draw any more conclusions, let's travel 12.5 miles south to Singer Island. It's a Saturday, the beach is jam-packed with people splashing about in the water, and yet there are no sharks in sight. I think it's safe to say, based on what we saw in the first video in the series, that the sharks know that we are there. They could sneak up on us if they really wanted to and launch an attack, and if that were their true intention, it would all be over before we could even know what was happening. But as we've seen, as far as people swimming near to shore is concerned, sharks will go out of their way to avoid us. But let's travel a couple hundred feet to the north of the public beach on Singer Island. Here we have a blacktip shark within striking distance of all these beachgoers. But instead of getting close to the multitude of swimmers, the shark chooses to hang around this area. But why? If we take a closer look, you'll notice that this area, like the area we just looked at in Jupiter, has a reef with many underwater features, some of them appearing to be man-made. If we take an even closer look, you'll also notice that there are lots of fish hanging around this area. We know for a fact that sharks can sense the movement of an injured or sick fish by using the nerves in the lateral line that circles their bodies. After watching hours of videos that show coastal sharks prowling the waters near to shore, it appears that nature's garbage collectors are more interested in catching sick or injured marine life, or ambushing a large school of migrating fish. Hundreds of years of observation by local fishermen tells us that sharks like an easy meal and would rather not injure themselves going after healthy prey that could fight back or even chase down fast-moving fish. Coastal sharks can swim fast, but they usually only do it for short bursts and not for any extended period of time. So if humans are not on a shark's menu, why do we sometimes have a spike in shark attacks? That will be the subject of my next video in the series. Stay tuned.